That night, Cortés got drunk. He drank to escape from himself, to flee from the words that Malinali had pronounced hours before, to flee from the truth. He did not want to hear that a man is a transitory thing in this life, that no one remains forever on the earth, that power is fleeting, that time lays waste to all. Delirious, he sang, and his off-key voice chattered the beauty of a song. Or he recited verses in Latin, or pieces of poems that made no sense. The alcohol changed his behavior completely. Suddenly, his attitude changed. From raucous joy, he went to anger, to violence. "No one," he screamed. "Listen to me. No one will ever betray me again. None of my men will be able to turn against me. No one will plan intrigues regarding my person, because whoever does, whoever dares, will die in an embarrassing and cruel manner. No one will be allowed to oppose my thoughts, my will. No one will be allowed to contradict my ideas or ever to divert my intuitions. Those who are near me, who know me, have to be a shadow of my person, for only then will I be able to achieve all my goals. Only then can the infinite power of my emotions reach its joyful destiny. Everyone listen, because if I die, so will you." At that instant, he kept his eyes on Malinali, who was watching Cortés's transformation and insanity. In those moments, he was truly frightening. He was someone who had lost control, was frenzied. It seemed as if his mind was set on fire with each gulp of alcohol he drank. It ravaged his blood, and he became possessed by a desire for greatness and an unknown vengeance that seemed to come from some errant genes that forced him to transform the world into an arena of combat and death. That feeling of vengeance and anger was encrusted in Cortés's heart and blood, as if his rancor caused a festering wound that affected all his thoughts. Malinali grew afraid and was overcome with a feeling of despair. Alcohol was a bad companion to men and to the gods. It had changed Quetzalcoatl in such a fashion that he had been capable of fornicating with his sister, and it was said that Cortés, under the influence of alcohol, had strangled his wife. This man was capable of the basest murder. A tragic omen coursed through her blood and warned her of her own danger, but at the same time offered her the serenity to feign calm in the heat of battle. Cortés pulled her toward him and said in a low voice, "So you no longer want to be a slave, is that so? Then I will do as you please. I am going to make you into a wife, but not my wife. You are close to me, but we will not be united. Your blood and my blood created a new blood that belongs to both of us, but now your blood will mix with someone else's. I will continue to be your lord, but you will never be my wife." Then an extraordinary scream came from Cortés's throat. "Jaramillo! Come here, my faithful soldier!" Jaramillo obeyed, and when he was next to him, Cortés took his hand and placed it on Malinali's heart. Jaramillo, embarrassed, tried to pull it away, but Cortés held it firmly in place. "Approach this woman," he said. "Feel her heart, her touch, her hair, because from here on she is yours. Take this woman to sate all your desires in her and to see if you can become me." He laughed in an exaggerated and false manner. Cortés chose Jaramillo to be with Malinali because, aside from being one of his most valued men, he was the most trusted. He wanted to bind Malinali to Jaramillo for two reasons: to bind Jaramillo to his will and to deal with Malinali from a more reasonable distance, a less emotional one. In such a way, he could make best use of that surprisingly intelligent woman who was indispensable to his plans. Jaramillo gave Cortés an incredulous and surprised look. He didn't know if this was a joke, if what his superior was saying was due to drunkenness or delirium, or if he was mocking him. There was uncertainty in Jaramillo's eyes and joy in his heart. He looked away so that Cortés would not notice that Malinali was the woman he had longed for since that long-ago day on the shores of the river when Cortés penetrated her for the first time. That woman that he was now offering was the one that had heated his thoughts countless times, the woman that he had always wanted naked in his arms. Nonetheless, Jaramillo took Cortés apart to question him. "Hernán, what do you mean by this? Why are you making me Marina's lord? Why this wish, suddenly risen from nowhere and without reason, that I be her husband?" "Jaramillo, don't lie to yourself," Cortés responded. "For days, months, and years, Marina has appeared in your dreams. You are already her husband since you think so insistently about her. Just as I see these stars above us, I have seen in the depth of your mind how many times you have desired her. You are my friend, and I give you your wish in exchange for which you will give Marina a name, a status, and bring protection to my son. This is the biggest charge I have bestowed upon you, the greatest mission I can place in your hands. Jaramillo, help me make history."
This ends Disc 5. Malinche, Disc 6.
Later, Cortés and his retinue were witnesses at the wedding of Jaramillo and Malinali. On the night of the wedding, Jaramillo, by then already drunk and full of desire, penetrated her again and again. He drank from her breasts, kissed her skin, submerged himself in her, emptied all his being in Malinali, and fell asleep. Cortés, completely inebriated, slept spread-eagled. He looked half dead, like someone still oblivious to the fact that he had torn away the best part of himself. The only one who was awake was Malinali. The desire to set herself on fire kept her alert. The desire to evaporate, to become a star, to melt into the sun, just as Quetzalcoatl had done. She longed to stop being herself, to fly, to be a part of everything and nothing, not to see or hear or feel or know, but above all, not to remember. She felt humiliated, sad, alone, and she could not figure how to let out the frustration from her being, how to cast her grief to the wind, how to change her decision to be present in this world. She thought of the moments in which Cortés's mouth and her mouth had been one mouth only, and the thought of Cortés and his tongue one single idea, one new universe. The tongue had joined them, and the tongue had separated them. The tongue was the cause of everything. Malinali had destroyed Montezuma's empire with her tongue. Thanks to her words, Cortés had made allies that ensured his conquest. She decided then to punish the instrument that had created that universe. At night, she crossed through the jungle until she found an agave plant from which she pulled a thorn and with it pierced her tongue. She spat blood as if she were ridding her mind of a poison, her body of shame, and her heart of its wound. After that night, her tongue would never be the same. It would not create marvels in the sky or worlds in the ears. It would never again be the instrument of any conquest, nor order thought, nor explain history. Her tongue was bifurcated and broken. It was no longer an instrument of the mind. As a result, the expedition to Ibueras was a failure. Cortés's defeat was buried in silence. Reality saw them return vanquished. In the ship that brought them back from Ibueras, silence reigned. From the gunwale, Malinali watched the sea, its constant movement, its colors. The thought occurred to her that the sea was the best image of God, because it seemed infinite, because her eyes could not take it all in. Malinali was about to be a mother for the second time. Her heart guarded a silence, and in that silence all the sounds of the world were evident. To feel alive within her life deeply affected Malinali's heart. Not only did she bring with her a piece of flesh in her flesh, but she shared her soul with its soul. And perhaps, as these two souls joined, all souls were, and a heaven of souls was perhaps like a heaven of stars. A few days afterward, as Malinali gazed at the stars, she was surprised by contractions and gave birth, squatting on the deck of the ship. Her daughter came out covered in blood and in the light of the stars. Malinali remembered that Marina, her mestizo name, the one with which Cortés had baptized her, meant she who comes from the sea. The sea, el mar, was also contained within the name of her son Martín. Her daughter, since she came from the womb of the sea, was also water from her water. She decided to return her daughter's umbilical cord to the sea, to the broken vessel of the universe from which all beings had come. She felt great relief when the umbilical cord came loose from her fingers and crashed into the salty waters. For a few moments it floated on the surface, and then it was embraced and brought down into the deep, dark waters. For some strange reason, she understood that eternity was an instant of peace where everything is understood, everything makes sense, even if it could not be explained in words, for there was no language to name it. With her tongue paralyzed by emotion, Malinali took her small daughter and offered her breast to her so that she might drink milk, drink the sea, so that she might feed from love, poetry, the light of the moon. And so doing, she understood that her daughter should be called Maria. Maria like the Virgin. In Maria, she would renew herself. She didn't hesitate in responding to Jaramillo, her husband, who had asked her if it was true that women who nurse died a little. No, they are reborn, she said categorically.